Lesson 3, compressed air brake system with critical task 091262B 1005 091262B 3054. Introduction the pressure applied with the brake pedal, the transmit the brake mechanism of the air with the better with you to understand how the pressure is determined by the air brake system necessary to understand the principle of the compressed gases. Part A, with the principle of the basic with the component with the 3-1 with the principle of the character for the air brake system of the brake with the control of the operator with the apply with the compressed air with the provide with the brake and the force with the control of the even with the heavy vehicles, unlike with the liquid gases are compressed easily with the gas or such air combined with the force applied with the gas the compressor with the heads less the volume of the place of the weight of the one piston. The fifth container exerts the force of the air originally filled with the entire container of the compressor only with the proportion of the container due to the force of the weight upon it with the pressure upon compressed air resulting in the force exerted on the weight will equally distributed with all directions and the liquid compressed for the air under the pressure may be stored conventionally made available the power application of the brakes and the air line connected with the compressed air with the air reservoir with into the brake pedal. The brake pedal operates the lever of the brake valve and the brake pedal depresses the opens of the valve of the brake valve with a measure with a certain amount of the compressed air with the air reserved to go through the front and the rear axles. 3-1 compressed gas compressibility. The show of the gas on the left and then being the weight with the piston with the gas compressed by the weight. 3-2 basic component of the compressed air with the brake system. If the 8 components of figure 3-2, the air compressor reservoir governor, brake valve of the brake chamber, the quick release valve of the brake relay valve with the slackage of the system cylinder, hydraulic brake system, in less than 2, they might be the manner of the difference compressed for the governor. They will not affect the maintenance of the practice of the component of the compressor driven by the engine and for the compressor for the air force to preserve the where it's for the under the pressure made available to the operating of the brakes, air under the pressure for the reservoir released into the brake line of the valve of the operating with the pedal of the release air go with the brake chamber near the wheel with the brake with the contained flexible diaphragm a plate with against the diaphragm is connected with directly with the mechanism of the wheel brakes with the linkage of the force with the compressed air admitted with the chamber to the diaphragm to move the plate with the operator with the brake shoot through the linkage special regulating valve to operate with the brakes on all vehicles and trailers. Figure 3-2 shows the compressed air brake system starting with from the compressor, then going for the brake pedal with the number 1 reserve, the number 2 reserve with the governor with the gauge, then the number 1 and number 2 with the reserve going to the relay valve. Also then to the brake valve and then the quick release valve rubber hose and the rubber hose to the brake chamber there slack adjusters. Air compressor with the air reserve with the air compressor the furnace with the compressed air with the brake operation driven directly with the engine crankshaft lines 1 with the auxiliary shaft with the air reserve with the receiver with the rim of the air compressor with the store with the use of the brake system 1 to script the air compressor usually single action reciprocating with the self-lubricated with the vehicle's engine lubrication system but the water cooled and air cooled cylinder heads the use of the air compressor with displacement approximately 7 cubic feet per minute with 2 cylinders with those with the displacement at 12 cubic feet per minute with the 3 cylinders typical air compressor shown figure 3-3. Figure 3-3 the unloading clearance of the drain plug with the oil passing the oil leading from the engine that oil return to the engine crankshaft, oil seal, oil patch, piston, discharge valve, unloading valve, the discharge cap nut. Operation air compressors continue continuously with the engine running with the governor control of the actual compression of the air, the partial vacuum created with the piston downward stroke intake with the power ports with the uncover the near bottom with the stroke of the intake pave the intake ports are covered the piston start with the upstroke with the air and air in the cylinders compressed. Pressure lift with the discharge valve with the compressed air, discharge with the reservoir, the piston with the stroke with the downstroke with the discharge with the valve closed with the pressure. Soon as the pressure is relieved when the reservoir air pressure reaches the maximum setting with the governor the air is under the air pressure allowed to pass into the cavity below the underloading diaphragm of the cylinder head. The air pressure lift the one end of the underloading lever the pivot everything on its pan with the surfacing over the unloaded valve on the seat. The unloading valve of the seat's unloaded cavity forms a passage between the cylinder and the compressor and stop the drop into the air pressure below the minimum setting with the governor causing the unloading valve to release the air pressure beneath the unloading the diaphragm. The unloading valve to return the seat. The compression is resumed. Air governor the component of the limits of the pressure produced for the compressor for the description. Air governor the figure 3-4 for the maintain with the air pressure for the reservoir for the controlling the compressor unloading of the mechanism. 2 operation of the gear driven air compressor the mount with the engine supply with the pressure for the brake system compressed air support and the interconnected metal tank of the pressure produced for the compressor for the control of the air governor the control of the operation of the compressor. The air governors regulate the pressure at the air system at 100 psi. The air drop the pressure for the air governor the actuated to cover the air compressor to build up and set the pressure. Figure 4 show the air governor the compressor the unloading mechanism for the from the reservoir. Air brake valve the component with control of the brake operation of the direct flow of the air reservoir with the air brake chamber the brake supply with the air with the brake chamber the atmosphere with the brakes relief the one description the air brake valve the lever with the tank of the brake valve brake pedal with the lever to control the operating with the inlet exhaust valve with the valves the air control with the air with the inlet delivered or to release from the brake chamber. Operation of the brake pedal with the compressor with the air brake valve with the lever to move the toward the applied position the plunger regulating the spring or force down and applying with the mechanical force of the diaphragm exhaust valve with the spring with the weaker with an intake of the valve of the spring. It was also valve with the force down without to see, but the forward intake of the valve was open when the intake valve was open into the air from the reserve is allowed flow within the air brake from the air brake chamber to apply with the brakes. When the air brake pressure is below the diaphragm, overcomes the mechanical force exerted at the top of the diaphragm lifting enough to close the inlet valve to maintain with a constant air pressure for the system with the further depression pedal and additional mechanical force of the diaphragm, thereby allowing the further brake application. The operator release the brake pedal, reducing mechanical force of the diaphragm and inlet valve that remains closed with the exhaust valve open to allow the air to the exhaust of the air brake chamber to release the brakes. 3.5 Air brake valve. Give your plunger regulating spring with the diaphragm and the exhausting valve spring, exhausting valve, the air from the reservoir, the intake valve spring, the inlet valve, and the lever. Air brake chamber with each component with the one each of the wheel, the each of the converter with the pressure for the compressor with the mechanical force applying with the brake. For the description of air brake chamber, the figure 3.6 with each for the wheel converts with the pressure for the mechanical motion, operation for the air under the engine for the air brake chamber, the behind with the diaphragm compressed with the return spring cover with the pressure rod, trouble the slack adjuster rotate with the turn with the camshaft with the S cam with the connect with the engine with the camshaft, the turn push with the brake shoe assembled with the part with the cover for the brakes to apply. 3.6 the air brake chamber, the return spring with the yoke with the push rod and the diaphragm, and air quick release valve, the component that you with the speed with the exhaust with the air brake with the chamber that seal with the brakes. We quickly release the chambers or rear not to close the brake valve. The description of the valve 3.6 with the in air lift the go with the brake valve with the front axle. The air quickly release provide to reduce the time of the release of the brakes shown with the exhaust and of the air under the pressure of the air brake chambers. Operation of the valve contained with the spring load of the diaphragm through allows the air through the valve with the one direction of the brake application position from the piston out of the air under the pressure of the brake valve that enters the inlet port of the diaphragm, force down to close the exhaust port. Air under the pressure deflect for the outer edge of the diaphragm downward to enter the brake shoe. Brake chamber to apply the brake for the air pressure for the chamber below the diaphragm equal to the air pressure above the diaphragm spring force outer edge of the diaphragm, and again for the valve with the body closing the brakes for the chamber, the inlet port for the holding position diaphragm continue to keep the exhaust valve closed. The pressure above the diaphragm reduced, the completely release of the operated release of the brake pedal partially and completely with the air pressure below the diaphragm cover the diaphragm to raise the open exhaust port and release the brake of the chamber's air pressure. 3.7 the air brake quick release valve, the inlet port valve of the diaphragm spring with the exhaust port with the body and the diaphragm. Air relief valve, the component of the U with the speed operation for the rear wheel, the brake for the trailer, truck with the long wheel base, the short brake line with the permanent rapid brake action without the aid of the relay valve on the truck with the short wheel base, the description airline connected with the brake with the valve with the air relay valve with the figure 3.8 located with the rear vehicle, normally the line contained with the stoplight and the switch of the second airline to apply with the reservoir air pressure, the air relay valve with the air relay valve control with the brake valve to speed with the application releases the air rear of the wheel brakes. The following wheel base vehicles reacts quietly, slightly change with the air pressure for the air brake valve, the operation with the brake pedal, the pressure for the brake valve, the meter for the certain amount of the air with the relay valve, the air opens the valve with the rear relay valve that allows the small amount of the air from the air reserve to go to each of the air brake chamber for the rear wheel of the brake for the pedal to relieve the air brake, the air pressure in the line between the brake valve and the relay valve is relief the close of the valve of the air relay valve with the shutting of the air supply from the air reserve at the same time the air quickly releases the relay valve and the relay valve opens allows the air pressure for the air brake chamber to escape and the turn relief of the rear brakes in the air in line with the brake valve to escape the brake valve, the exhaust port, the amount of the brake application played with the torque, simple wheels depending upon how far down the brake pedal is depressed. The pedal is depressed down a greater amount of the air. The pressure is applied with the air brake chamber. The cover of the brake shoe with the lining to press for the harder against the brake drum to provide the greater braking action. Figure 3A shows the air relay valve, the brake valve port on the brake chamber port, the supply valve with the exhaust port with the diaphragm. Slack adjuster, the component used to adjust the brakes to compensate with the line with the description. Slack adjuster, the function adjustable level to provide the meaning of adjusting the brakes. The push rod with the air brake chamber, the connection with the slack adjuster. Figure 3.9 serve the two purposes for the chain of the back and forth motion. The push rod with the motor motion makes the minor adjustment of the brake shoes and linings. Operation of the slack adjuster spline with the one end of the shaft that goes through the backing of the plate with wheel brake at the other end of the shaft of the cam. The air brake chamber push rods move to the toe end of the slack adjuster cover the shaft to rotate at the cam on the brake end of the shaft. Rotate with the cover of the brake shoe the line to move it against the drum. Rotating the worn shaft slack adjuster minor with adjustment of the brake. The wheel brakes assembly. There's much of this shown those of the hydraulic air over hydraulic system. The main difference is the wheel cylinders replaced with an operating cam. Alright, 3.6 shows the worm and the gear of the slack adjuster. Part B, troubleshooting. 3.3, introduction. This provides the information required with the diagnosis correctly with unsatisfactory operation failure to items, the engineering, construction equipment, and any component of the provided unless from the job of the situation that has been created required with the use of the maintenance allocation chart, the appendix, and the troubleshooting guide. 3-4 requirement. The equipment throughout the job situation, a hand fish model with an MT-250, 225 ton crane. The requirement of troubleshooting the problem to take the appropriate corrective action. Duty assignment will the same. Lesson 2, an operator will assist the safety prime with the consideration for the engine shut off, the control of the transmission level in the neutral position. The brakes are set when the wheels are chocked. 3-5, the initial situation. If the inside with the troubleshoot the brakes, if the hand shooter model with the MT-250, 225 ton crane with the file description of DA form 5988E. Figure 10, the shape of the air pressure will not build up. Normal pressure air can be heard with the shape of the round of the air tank with a visual inspection required. Reveal the rupture tank of the air for the following paragraph show that the actions needed to be taken. Interpret the inspection you for the step 1 through the 3 below the perform the step 1 based on the fault description information of DA form 5988E. You have the maintenance allocation chart to determine the maintenance level of the responsibility for placing the air tank. Step 2, an operation of the organization the level of appendix D, page 18, D19 and D20. Determine the figure in item, determine the correctly the equipment, nomenclature, noun, part of the national stock number. The step 3, the quick locate with the appendix D with the page 9, D16 show the replacement of the air tank or the organization replace maintenance responsibility should have located the air tank under the correct equipment noun with the reserve air with the air reserve with the appendix D with the pages 8, 19, and 820. Refer the reference number to page 52 with the part number 27 to D, the I for the maintenance supervisor the instruction to remove the install of the air reserve. However, the lesson will not go into the step required, but will not move but will move to the next situation. Determine what with the the air reserve up with the child. Check with the troubleshooting the guide and you them out with the same with the concern with the broken and leaking the restricted tube with the hosing line with the red list of the under all the following malfunctions of the brakes. Applying slowly the brake release slowly. The brakes do not apply. The brakes do not relieve the air pressure. The drops quickly with the engine stop. The brake release. The air pressure drops quickly. The engine stop. The brakes fully apply with the braking leaking the restricting tube with the hosing line with the cause of the malfunction. They have the instructor the maintenance supervisors to replay for the horn assembly for the following steps to perform the task. Form DA form 5988E. Step 1, check the appendix of the B with the page D16 with the confirm the replacement of the hose of the assembly organizational level task. Determine the material required for the place for the hose assembly by adding the appendix D page 8, D19 and G20 reference number 20 with material needed to the place for the hose assembly part number 820 P2922 D2 with the assembly of the shuttle services and supply with the 2 each with the step of the replacement of the hose assembly will not be covered in this lesson. Repair service the brake with the use of the following steps to perform the test. Step 1, use the appendix D with the D16 to determine the maintenance function for the authorized to perform the service of the brake. Step 2, indicate with the appendix D with the D16 the service of the brake adjustment authorized for the organizational maintenance figure 11 311 of the page 314 show the slack of the adjusted locking screw locking sleeve figure 320 12 of the page 314 show the adjusting screw with the install of the front of the wheel brake chamber to prepare the service of the brake with the valve of the use of the outrigger of the brake of the wheel off the ground push the locking screw locking sleeve with the slack adjusted to determine the adjusting screw until the screw required to apply the brakes required in 1 inch. Note, use either the open end of the socket of the wrench to determine the adjusting screw with ensure that the locking sleeve is held there about to disengage the locking mechanism. Never use the wrench on a locking sleeve. Check the brake adjustment make with the sub of the brake applications the air brake. So the air brake chamber, the push rod should move with the total 1 inch from the release position. Apply with the position. Ensure the brake shoes are not dragging the release of the brakes and spinning of the wheel by hand. Note, use the feeler gauge to check with the lining with the dome clearance of the front brake with the clearance of more than 6 hundredths of an inch, or adjust the brakes manually described below with the scheduled vehicle brake surface. Check horse the front wheel with the off the ground. Move the dust cover, adjusting the slop of the above of the below of the chamber. Adjust the bolts of the right hand threads, adjusting the spoon turn this steering wheel until the heavy drag drops and the back off the steer star wheel to the light drag with the drum and then reinstall the dust cover the adjusting slots. Figure 311 shows the slack adjuster and 312 shows the front wheel brake chamber with the locking sleeve and adjusting screw. Perform the leakage periodically with the leakage test to perform to determine whether the brake chamber is suitable to continue serviceability has been assigned by the use of the following step to perform for the leakage. Step 1, have the operator make with the full brake application code with the non-pressure housing with the clamp, the ring with the inlet ports, the fitting with the soap solution. Ensure that there is no leakage of these points. Step 3, tighten the clamp bolt only enough to stop the leakage. The leak is detected around the clamp ring. Tighten the clamp bolt successfully cold to restore the diaphragm sealing of the flange. Step 4, disassemble the repair of the brake chamber if the leakage occurs with the non-pressure hosing or if the leakage cannot be stopped with the tightening of the clamp bolt. Step 313 show the brake shoe assembly, the clamp ring with the inlet port for the diaphragm, the pressure housing, the push rod, the non-pressure housing, wedging security assembly, wedging, wedge spring of the plunging house, the actuating plunger, and the anchor plunging solid. Replace the brake chamber, the equipment with the maintenance allocation chart for the placement of the brake chamber, the functional organizational maintenance to replace the front chamber that must be removed before with the disassemble with the reassemble step 1 through 5 below with the remove of the brake chamber. Figure 314 release all the air pressure with the remove of the slack adjuster cotter pin. Step 2. Step 3. Unscrew the air line connected with the area of the brake. Step 4. Remove the mounting nuts from the washer. Step 5. Remove the front of the brake chamber. 314. Front brake chamber. The air line connected with the mounting of the rule with the washers and slack adjuster cotter pin. To disassemble, reassemble the front brake chamber with the figure 315 with the following step listed each of the procedure. Figure 315. Diaphragm plate pressure housing, diaphragm clamp ring with the unpressuring wedge, push rod, boot and wedge guide. Disassemble the following step with the method of removing the diaphragm with the boot. The items will use the one over the collar with the point of the brake chamber. Then on the machine with the disconnect with the airline with the line with the brake chamber. The step 3 with remove the clamp with the ring and the nut bolt with the holding the pressure hold housing in place with the spread with the clamp. Remove the step 3 with the hold the diaphragm again for the non-pressure housing. Remove the pressure housing. Step 4 remove the diaphragm carefully with the holding the diaphragm plate with the against the wedge of the rod that prevents the wedge assembly with the coming out of the engagement with the plunger. Note with the wedge assembly backs out of the plunger anytime during the procedure will be necessary to remove the brake shoe with the plate with the wedge assembly. Step 5 continue to hold the plate diaphragm and swing the boot with the boot is not horn not attached with the non-pressure housing. Strip the old boot from the housing. Step 6 extract the diaphragm plate with carefully from the wedge assembly with the boot with the wedge guide will be remain in the diaphragm plate push rod. Reassemble the following steps. Describe the method of installing the new diaphragm boot. Install the new boot with the diaphragm push rod with the pressure. Press the wedge guide with all the way to the end of the push rod. Step 2 clean the non-pressure housing center with a cement thinner or similar with the solvent area with the bolt cemented with the step 3. Apply the cement around the tube at the end of the non-pressure housing. Position the diaphragm plate push rod in the tube. Carefully engage the wedge rod and so that it does not pull out the plunger. Step 4. Press the boot into the position cementing with the hold of the diaphragm again for the wedge assembly. Step 5. Install the new diaphragm over the diaphragm plate onto the non-pressure housing with the pushing of the diaphragm plate with again for the wedge assembly. Step 6. Install the pressure housing over the diaphragm. Install the clamps. Ring over the non-pressure housing flanges. Secure the clamp ring with the clamp ring and bolt nut. Step 7. Reconnect the airline and the lines of the brake chamber. Have the operator make it the full hold, the full brake application. Check with the brake chamber. Leakage check with the brake performance of the road testing machine. Step 4. Air over hydraulic brake systems.